What if I told you that almost everything you know about death is wrong? The ancient Egyptians believed that life didn't end with your last breath. On the contrary, that's when the real journey began. But don't think this transition was easy. There was a guardian who decided who crossed into eternity and who was forgotten forever. And no, it wasn't the feared Osiris or the vengeful Set. It was Anubis, the mysterious jackal-headed god, the one who weighed souls, protected the dead, and enforced the justice of the afterlife. But here's the part no one tells you. Anubis wasn't just a god of the dead. He was a strategist, a protector, and a symbol of the transition between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Why was he so important to the Egyptians? What role did he play in the first mummification in history? How did he face Set and protect the cosmic order? And most importantly, what can Anubis's wisdom teach you about your own life and the choices you make? If you think you already know this story, get ready to uncover secrets buried for millennia. We're about to dive into the real story of Anubis, a god who didn't just judge the dead, but also guarded truths that could change the way you see fate, justice, and the meaning of existence. Stick with me till the end, because this journey might just change your perspective on life itself. Anubis, born from secrets, raised for justice. Anubis didn't just randomly appear in the Egyptian pantheon. His origin comes from a divine drama worthy of the greatest epic tales. Nephthys, sister of Isis and wife of Set, was drawn to Osiris, the great ruler of Egypt. To fulfill her desire, she disguised herself as Isis and seduced her own brother-in-law. From this secret union, Anubis was born, a child marked by the ambiguity of fate. Fearing Set's wrath, Nephthys abandoned the baby, and it was Isis, with her infinite compassion, who took him in. From the very beginning, Anubis was shaped not just by divine lineage, but by a web of betrayals, secrets, and redemption. Raised by Isis, he grew up in the shadow of Osiris, absorbing his wisdom and sense of justice. Instead of following the path of disorder like Set, he became a guardian of cosmic balance. While other gods sought glory in war or the splendor of ruling, Anubis found his purpose in the passage between worlds, the bridge between life and death. His upbringing shaped his character. Hiding in the marshes, he learned patience and silence. In Isis's gaze, he found a love that transcended blood. In the shadows of the underworld, he discovered his true calling as a guide for spirits. His birth wasn't just a random twist of fate. It was the first step in the making of a god who would defy time itself. But what made him so unique? The answer lies in his form, his commanding presence, and of course the image that would make him one of the most recognizable gods in all of Egypt. The symbolism behind the jackal-headed god. Anubis wasn't just any god. His presence commanded respect, and for good reason. His half-human, half-jackal figure carried deep symbolism. His black fur, dark as the night, represented the cycle of death and rebirth. A reminder that the end is never truly the end, but rather a transition. His eyes, shining like lost stars in the desert, reflected his knowledge of the mysteries beyond. Every detail of his appearance told a story. The jackal, an animal associated with cemeteries, reinforced his role as the protector of tombs, ensuring order in a world where chaos was always lurking. But it wasn't just about his looks. His upright stance, ever watchful, radiated authority, without tyranny. Unlike Set, who embodied destructive violence, Anubis carried a quiet, inevitable power. He didn't need to shout orders or brandish weapons. His mere presence was enough for everyone to know they stood before the judge of the dead. Even his choice of colors had hidden meanings. Black, far from symbolizing only death, represented the fertility of the Nile soil, the renewal of life itself. Duality was woven into his very existence. Death and rebirth, darkness and wisdom, fear and protection. He wasn't a god of terror, but a god of transition. And it was exactly this duality that made him indispensable to the functioning of the Egyptian cosmos. After all, death wasn't an absolute end. Someone had to ensure that the passage between worlds happened the right way. Anubis, the cosmic judge and guardian of the dead. Anubis wasn't just a god of the dead, He was the god who ensured order at the most crucial moment of human existence, the transition from life to the afterlife. While other gods ruled over visible and tangible realms, he operated at the very edge of existence, guiding souls to their final judgment. His role was fundamental. Without him, the underworld would descend into total chaos. But his job wasn't just bureaucratic, he was also a guardian of cosmic justice. In the Hall of Truth, Anubis presided over the weighing of the heart. The heart of the deceased was placed on a scale, balanced against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and balance. If the heart was as light as the feather, the soul could enter the paradise of Aru. If not, it was devoured by Ammit, the monstrous soul eater. And who made sure the scales were fair? Anubis. There were no bribes, no shortcuts, only truth carried weight there. Anubis's presence in funerary rituals wasn't just symbolic. It was a promise that the deceased wouldn't face this journey alone. The first mummification, a ritual of rebirth. Death wasn't just an ending in ancient Egypt. It was the beginning of a sacred journey, and the tombs were portals to that new existence. And like any important portal, it needed protection. Anubis was the guardian of these passages, ensuring that the dead rested in peace and that funerary rites were properly respected. But the practice of mummification didn't just emerge out of nowhere. It was Anubis himself who first performed it, and he did so on none other than Osiris. Betrayed by his own brother Set, Osiris was brutally murdered and dismembered. It was Isis who tirelessly sought out each piece of his body. But collecting them wasn't enough. Osiris had to be restored. That's where Anubis stepped in. With divine precision, Anubis embalmed Osiris, covering his body with sacred oils, fragrant resins, and carefully wrapped linen. But this wasn't just an act of preservation, it was a ritual of rebirth. Through this process, Osiris was transformed into the ruler of the underworld, paving the way for the entire Egyptian belief system of life after death. This event cemented Anubis's role as the patron of mummification and established the very concept of the afterlife. If even Osiris had to go through this process, then every mortal had to follow the same path to reach eternity. What does Anubis's story mean for you? Now that you know the true story of Anubis, how does it change your perception of death, justice, and eternity? The ancient Egyptians had an incredible perspective on life after death. But here's the real question. If your heart were weighed on a scale today, would it be light as a feather or weighed down by regrets? Maybe we don't face Osiris's tribunal in modern times, but every choice we make shapes our own destiny. And if you could apply a little of the ancient Egyptians' wisdom to your daily life, what would you change? If this content made you see things differently, don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Just like Anubis guided souls, you can help others uncover hidden mysteries. And tell me, which part of Anubis's story impacted you the most? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts.